Hey everybody, welcome back to day 4 of Android Kotlin Bootcamp. Today we're going to be doing a little bit of UI work, changing some of how the Android app looks. Then we're going to be able to have maybe an input box where we type out our name, then we get its text value. So how can we do this? First of all, I deleted everything else. So if you're just left like this, you can follow along inside app, Java, main activities, just open up main activity. But actually first let's focus on content main. So what we can do if you need to find it, it's under, so if I close all of these, it'll be under app, resources, layouts, and then there are two files there. It's content main is what we want. So we have this kind of palette thing kind of up at the top, so we can open that up and we can do cool stuff like we can drag in a button. Say we can put a button anywhere, so it's kind of like drag and drop UI. So I'm going to go ahead and select that, delete it, and I'm going to select that and hit just the backspace or delete key on your keyboard will get rid of it. So let's say we want to do something. Let's say we want somebody to enter their name. So you want an input field where they can type in Daniel or Mel or Deb or whatever. So what we need to do is we need to find the right widget that we can use, or whatever it's called. So let's click on, so there are a number of things you can choose from, and again it could be open or it could be closed. You can just do that to open it up, and we're going to go ahead and go to text, and then you can do all kinds of stuff, like say we drag in a password, so we can just drag it and let go. So I'm going to go ahead and save it. I'm going to do you can either press that button right there or do the keyboard shortcut for it, and if you put your mouse over it, see on Mac it's Control R. So I can go ahead and run that and go to my emulator, or if you have a physical device, that's fine, just open it up and see if we type now, see how once we hit a letter it's all password protected. So that's kind of cool. Or we can do, I'm gonna select that and hit the delete key, or we can do stuff like email. So we can drag in an email box. I'm gonna go ahead and run that, or you can press the button there, and when this opens up, the keyboard will be custom tailored for email. So let's say I click on that, and now we have the @ there. So if z@example.com or whatever, it has the characters that we need. Or we can select that and delete it. What we can do is we can do just numbers also. I forget where the numbers went. Yeah, so numbers, here we go. Or we can do, number. So if we drag on a number, we can just drag it, save it, and then run it, or the keyboard shortcut, and go back to your device or emulator, and you can see that you can start typing, and hey, there are no letters, it's just numbers. So if somebody's entering their zip code, or they're entering how old they are or something, you don't necessarily want them to have access to the full keyboard. What you could do instead is just kind of limit it to what they want. So we want 142, that's my zip code maybe, or whatever. So what we're going to do in this case is we're going to go ahead and drag on a plain text. So I'm going to just click and drag, and I'm going to kind of align it kind of where it snaps into place. You can kind of know that it kind of snaps into different places. We can put it there, we can put it at the bottom, we can put it anywhere we want to, but I'm going to go ahead and just put it right there. Now this is all in the constraint layout, and what we can do is you'll see on the sides there are these little not the corners, but the circular icons there. We can click and drag. So say you want this to be on the bottom or whatever, we can kind of click and drag, and it'll kind of constrained to the bottom. So we want it at the top left. So I'm going to do the left side, and I'm going to click and drag till it snaps into place. Then I'm going to click and drag over here and get that in place. Then we also want it at the top, so I'm going to click and drag up to the top, and there it is. So this is kind of cool, but you've noticed that, hey, there's a bunch of gaps there, and there's a bunch of gaps there. How can we do that? So we want it to be full width. So if you go over to the left side, there are attributes here, and if you select the text name, what you can do is you can see you have this kind of box shaped here. And if you click on, so that's top and bottom, that's left and right. And what we can kind of do here is cycle through some of the, and also you might need to press that button. So first, you might need to open that up, and then you might need to switch it to see it. But you can kind of toggle different modes. So just keep clicking on it, and you can see some of those are fixed, some of them are more fluid, some of them are just kind of, better. So we'll just stick with that one right there. So I'm going to go ahead and save it and run it, and I'm going to go back to the emulator, and we should see a text box, and we do. Okay, so somebody can type their name, but see how name are still there? We don't want that. So what we're going to do is select the first name, go to text, and we're going to delete the text there, and we're going to, in hint, we're going to type first name here. Okay, cool. So I'm going to save it and run it and go back to my emulator. And this time it should say type first name here, and that's all good. Then as soon as we start typing, it gets rid of that. So that's exactly what we want. So let's get into some Kotlin. Actually, we need one more thing. We need a button. So I'm going to go to buttons, and I'm going to just drag a button, and I'm going to put it somewhere on the left side, a little bit below it. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to constrain it to the left side. So click and drag there, and then click on that icon, and then kind of go to the text, the edit text, bottom of that, and it'll kind of constrain it there. So I'm going to save it and run it. And this thing can be really complicated if you're doing complex layouts. Hopefully I'll have other videos. There actually are some other videos on my channel if you want to recreate the Facebook profile, or if you want to, I think I also do the homepage of Facebook, but I'm not sure. So here we go. So we can type our name there and hit a button. So that's cool. Okay, so how do we actually access whatever is in there? So let's go back to main activity. Actually, let's go. So what's really important is that we give this an ID. So if you click on the edit text there where somebody types out their name, go all the way over to the left and you see ID. That can be anything. So right now it says edit text 6. So if we just come into Kotlin and do edit text 6, you see there it is. We already have access to it. So let's name this something else that makes more sense. Let's call this user first name. Let's do like name. Okay, cool. So we're going to go ahead and do yes there. So it says user first name. Now if we come over to here, and actually Kotlin Android Studio was smart enough to know we needed it, but what we can do is we can do user first name, and there we are, we have access to it. So let's do dot text dot to string, and that'll get us whatever the value of, so whatever you type into there, so ASDF, user, that'll be ASDF, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's go ahead and go back. Let's go ahead and click on the button, and then let's see, it's called button 4. Let's just call that, let's call it a submit button. So there we are, cool. So we have a submit button. So I'm going to go back to main activity, and let's do this. Let's do submit button dot set on click listener, and you'll have a number of options, but you want the ones with the brackets right there, just like that. So I'm going to double click on that and do enter, and you'll notice that every time the submit button, and again the submit button is whatever's right there, so whenever that button is pressed, do all of this code inside of here. So it's going to do, it'll do whatever you put inside of here will happen every time the button is pressed. Okay, so let's output a log statement. Let's do this. D testing. So there we go. So I'm going to save it and run it. And if we go back to the emulator, in a couple of seconds this should open up. And it does. Okay. So what I'm going to do in the background is I'm going to go ahead and go to logcat. And so there's our logcat. And I'm going to go ahead and press the button once. And you see every time I hit the button, it's adding Daniel's cool button was pressed, and for whatever reason it's slow, but I'm going to go ahead and clear that. Every time you hit this button, it should display a new logcat, and it does right there, just like it's supposed to. So every time I hit that, it's not working again. There we go. Anyway, okay, cool. So we have that. What else do we need to do? Oh yeah. So every time we know that every time the submit button is pressed, it'll do that code. So I'm going to go ahead and take this code right there. I'm going to cut it, and I'm going to get rid of some of the lines there. And what we're going to do is we're going to do first name is, then we'll do, I'll just go ahead and do it this way for now, but we'll do that. So I'm going to paste that in there, and so your code should look like that. So I'm going to save it and run it, and I'm going to go back to the emulator, and I'm going to type Jeff. We'll just do Jeff for whatever reason. And then sure enough, Daniel's cool button was pressed, first name is, and then you'll notice we don't have Jeff there. We're getting the value of whatever it is. So if I type in Jake and I hit the button, if I come down to here, now it says Jake. Or if I say Nathan, hit the button, we come down to here, it says Nathan. So this is all kind of cool. And I'm trying to think of what else in this video I should go over. If you have any questions, just leave a comment. But this is kind of a basic. This lesson had more to do with like the user layout than it did have to do about Kotlin. But you saw some cool stuff like submit button.set on click listener. Like before in Java, you'd have to do a ton of work to get that to work. But thankfully in Kotlin, it's really simple. So you learned how to drag in and edit text here. So first we did some layout work. You can kind of go through these and you can kind of drag some on. You can just play with it if you want. Just drag in a phone number, and you'll notice that you have these constraints, the circle icons. You just click and drag it to whatever you want it to align to. So you want it to there, that's fine. Or say you want to put it on the bottom, we can do that. Or what you can do is you can do it to another. You can do it instead of doing it to the app walls. You can do it to another element. So say you want it right below the button, you can do that. Or if you want an email below there, just kind of drag it in somewhere there. Then we'll do click and drag to the left, then click and drag to the top, and you'll see, hey, now it's kind of aligned up there. So you can kind of play with this and see what it does. So if I go ahead and run this, actually this should show us what we need, or not what we need, what we were just playing around with. Yeah, so there it is. So see, that one's for numbers, so it just has the number keyboard. This one is for email or whatever, so it's like, Daniel at. So the important thing is here it has the @ sign there, so they can just easily type that. Anyway, hoping you learned something, and I'll see you tomorrow.